There is a reality that many people only begin to feel clearly after turning 50. Rent does not go down. Living costs do not slow down. But the time left to live is limited. You can keep managing, keep calculating every bill, keep telling yourself that you will get used to it. But deep inside, another question quietly begins to surface. Is there anywhere in the world where with around $400 a month in rent, you can still live decently with dignity without merely surviving from one day to the next, without waking up every morning feeling pushed forward by money? This video is not about paradise. It is not about a perfect life, and it is not telling you to leave where you are. I am not painting a dream for you to chase, and I am not promising that everything will be easy. I am doing something much simpler. I am showing you countries that truly exist like this. Places where the cost of living no longer tightens your chest every morning you wake up. Places where life slows down just enough for you to breathe a little deeper, eat a meal without rushing, and end the day without carrying exhaustion with you. Whether you go or not, whether you stay or not, that decision is not mine. This video is not made to persuade, but to open up choices. To let you ask yourself one honest question. When time becomes the most valuable asset, what really matters is no longer how much money you make, but how you are allowed to live in the remaining years of your life. 5. Nicaragua. Granada, Leon. Nicaragua is not a place that overwhelms you in the first few minutes. It does not try to impress. It does not invite you in with glamour. What Nicaragua offers instead is a different feeling, slow, warm, and free from the need to compete with anyone. In Granada and Leon, two long-standing colonial cities, life unfolds as if someone intentionally turned the volume of the world down. Cobblestone streets, sun-faded houses, and central plazas where older people sit and talk every afternoon. No one is in a hurry. There is no sense that you need to buy more things to prove that you are living well. Here, consumption is not a measure of worth. People recognize one another. You quickly come to know the person selling bread each morning, the neighbor who sweeps the sidewalk at the same hour every day, the small cafe where the owner remembers your usual order without asking. Life in Nicaragua is not built to impress outsiders, but to keep people connected to each other. The cost of living reflects that same spirit. Renting a simple, clean apartment in Granada or Leon typically costs between $200 and $350 per month. It is not luxurious, but it has light space and quiet. With a monthly budget of around $600 to $800, many people live comfortably in the most honest sense of the word. You eat well, you sleep peacefully. You do not start each day worrying about bills. Residency in Nicaragua is also not a maze designed to exhaust you. The pensionado visa for retirees has a clear path and relatively low requirements compared to many other countries. There is no need for large investments or expensive property purchases. If you have stable retirement income, staying long-term is realistic and understandable. For many, this creates a rare sense of reassurance that you do not need to keep proving your value just to remain in one place. Nicaraguan culture places strong emphasis on family and neighbors. Community life is visible in everyday details. People greet each other. They check in on one another. They notice when you are not around. This closeness may feel intrusive to some, but for those who have experienced isolation, it can feel deeply grounding. You are not invisible in your own home. Of course, Nicaragua is not for everyone. If you need high-end conveniences, modern infrastructure, endless shopping, or systems that operate with perfect efficiency, this place may feel lacking. But if what you are looking for is a way to simplify life, to let go of what is no longer necessary, and to move through each day with less weight, Nicaragua can be a very honest answer. And in the end, the question is no longer whether Nicaragua is good or not. It becomes something much simpler and much harder to answer. If everything moved slowly, would that be enough for you? 4. Tunisia. Sousse Assé, Monastir. A Tunisia where your wallet begins to smile. If there is a place on the map where simply hearing about the rent makes you sit up straighter and listen more carefully, that place might very well be Tunisia. In Sousse and Monastir, two Mediterranean coastal cities, life is not designed to impress. The sea is blue in the same quiet way every day, the waves are gentle, and the cities are small enough that you are not pulled into a rushed rhythm. There is no loud nightlife that runs until morning. There is no pressure to go out and spend money just to prove that you are enjoying life. Evenings here often end early with a simple meal, a cup of tea, and the sea breeze moving through quiet streets. The cost of living in Tunisia reflects that spirit clearly. Renting a clean, light-filled apartment in Sousse or Monastir typically costs between $200 and $300 per month. Food is so affordable that many people find themselves rethinking how money used to control their meals. Bread, fish, vegetables, meat, hot local dishes from neighborhood cafes cost only a few dollars. You eat well regularly without constant calculation. For many, it is the first time in years that food stops feeling like a financial burden. When it comes to residency, Tunisia does not loudly advertise its policies. There are no banners or promises. But if you want to stay long-term and you have stable income, the path is not closed. The process is not overly complicated, does not require major investments, and does not make you feel like you are racing against paperwork. You stay because you live here, not because you signed something expensive. Healthcare is another quiet strength. Tunisia has well-trained doctors, many of whom studied or worked in Europe. Medical costs are far lower than in Western countries, yet the level of care is reassuring. A private doctor visit does not require hesitation, and healthcare does not become a constant source of stress in daily life. Tunisian culture centers around family and community. Older people are respected naturally without ceremony or status. People live close to one another, know one another, and look out for one another. This creates a different kind of safety, not enforced by systems, but sustained by social bonds. Tunisia is not a place where everything runs perfectly. Systems can be slow. Services are not always consistent. But in exchange, life here feels significantly lighter. No one pushes you to consume more. No one forces you into a pace that does not fit you. And in the end, the question is no longer whether Tunisia is good enough. It becomes a more honest one. Do you need a perfect system or a life that feels light enough to live? 3. Philippines, Dumaguete, Iloilo. The Philippines does not open with absolute quiet. It opens with people. In Dumaguete and Iloilo, two coastal university cities, you quickly sense one thing here: you are not left on your own. Life moves at a moderate pace, slow enough to be gentle, yet close enough that you always feel others around you. Narrow streets, small cafes, university campuses, and afternoons where people sit and talk without any particular reason. Dumaguete is often called the city of gentle people. Iloilo feels more orderly and structured, yet it still carries the warmth that defines much of the Philippines. These are places where starting a conversation does not feel unusual. A greeting, a smile, a brief exchange can easily turn into something longer. For those who are used to living alone, this kind of interaction is not overwhelming, but just enough to remind you that you are still part of a social world. The cost of living contributes to that sense of ease. Renting a simple, clean apartment in Dumaguete or Iloilo typically ranges from $250 to $400 per month. It is not luxurious, but it is comfortable. With a monthly budget of around $700 to $900, many people live quite well, eating properly, moving around easily, enjoying coffee breaks and occasional meals out without overthinking each expense. Money disappears more slowly, and as a result, so does the pressure in your mind. Residency in the Philippines is another reason many retirees feel at ease here. Visa extensions are relatively straightforward and rarely stressful. For those looking to stay longer, the SRRV retirement program offers a clear and manageable path. You are not forced into major decisions right away. You have time to live, observe, and decide whether this place truly fits the life you want. Healthcare in Dumaguete and Iloilo is not flashy, but it is sufficient. Private clinics are affordable and accessible, and medical staff are accustomed to working with foreign patients. English is widely spoken, which brings a great deal of reassurance when discussing health matters. Medical care does not become a constant worry, and that alone changes the texture of everyday life. Philippine culture places real value on older people, not in a ceremonial way, but in everyday behavior. People check in on you. They help. They do not treat slowness as an inconvenience. Society here is open rather than closed, and it rarely makes you feel like an outsider for long. Even if you live alone, isolation is not a common feeling. Of course, the Philippines is not the place for those who need absolute silence. Life has sound conversation and spontaneous interaction. But for many, that presence of others is exactly what makes the difference. And in the end, the question is no longer whether the Philippines is affordable or not. It becomes something more personal. Do you need complete quiet or the comfort of having people around you? 2. Albania. Berat. Shkodër. If Europe has ever made you feel tired, then perhaps you have not met Albania. A place where time is not used for consumption, but simply allowed to pass. Albania does not present itself like the rest of Europe. It does not force its way onto travel maps with lights events or must-see lists. In Berat and Shkodër, two old cities set among mountains, rivers, and lakes, life unfolds in a rare kind of space, one not filled to the edges by modern urgency. This is Europe, but a Europe that has not been stretched thin. Life here moves slowly and evenly, not because of poverty, but because no one feels the need to rush. The cities are small, built for walking. Stone streets, white houses clinging to hillsides, cafes opening early and closing when the light fades. There is no dense entertainment schedule, no sense that each day must be used to prove something. Days pass through simple rituals, coffee walking, brief conversations, and returning home as evening settles. The cost of living in Berat and Shkodër reflects this pace. Renting a modest, well-lit, clean apartment typically costs between $250 and $400 per month. Meals are simple, closer to home cooking than restaurants. You do not calculate every small decision, whether to eat out, whether to buy something unnecessary. Money disappears slowly, and with it much of the mental pressure. Residency is where Albania remains one of Europe's rare open spaces. A one-year visa allows long stays and is relatively easy to renew. There is no forced investment, no requirement to purchase property, no pressure to make large financial commitments just to remain. You can arrive live, observe, and decide at your own pace. That feeling, being allowed to stay without being pushed, is something many other places have lost. Albanian culture is quiet and restrained. Older people are respected naturally without display. People are not loud, not overly curious about others' private lives. They greet you politely, keep a comfortable distance, and allow space. For those accustomed to constant scrutiny and noise, this quiet is not loneliness, it is rest. Of course, Albania is not for everyone. If you need nightlife constant stimulation, or the feeling that something is always happening, this place may feel empty. But if what you seek is a Europe that does not exhaust you, a place where moving slowly is not seen as falling behind, then Albania is still there, quiet and wide enough to hold a gentler life. And in the end, the question is no longer whether Albania is attractive enough. it becomes something more honest. If Europe no longer makes you tired, would you dare to live slowly there? 1. Georgia. Kutaisi. Batumi. Georgia does not open with comfort, it opens with freedom. A rare kind of freedom where you are allowed to stay without having to explain who you are, where you come from, or who you plan to become. In Kutaisi and Batumi, two small cities set between mountains, rivers, and the Black Sea unfolds with almost none of the invisible supervision found elsewhere. No one asks what you do for a living. No one is curious about your long-term plans. No one pushes you to integrate quickly or prove that you deserve to stay. You arrive. You live. And that is enough. The pace of life here is simple and loosely held. The cities are small enough that you recognize the bakery owner, the taxi driver, the corner cafe. There is no feeling of tight control. No system that forces you to prepare answers for every question. Days pass in a quiet that feels real, not empty, just unintrusive. Living costs in Georgia reinforce that sense of ease. Rent in Kutaisi or Batumi typically falls between $200 and $350 per month. With a monthly budget of around $600 to $800, many people live comfortably a proper home. Decent food, easy transportation, and still enough left over to do nothing at all. Money does not push you to rush, and when money does not push, the mind breathes more easily. Residency is where Georgia becomes truly unusual. U.S. citizens are granted 365 days visa-free. No advance application, no complicated financial proof, no permanent residency required, yet you can live as if you belong. You are not forced to define yourself on paper before you have even decided whether this place fits your life. Georgian culture is direct, unpolished, and free of artificial politeness. People may not smile often, but when they speak, they mean it. And when they leave you alone, it is a form of respect. There is no pressure to be friendly, and no obligation to open yourself up. You are allowed to live quietly, slowly, and on your own terms. Georgia is not perfect. Infrastructure can be uneven. Services are not always smooth. But in return, it offers something increasingly rare, the right to be left alone. No explanations, no performance, no need to prove that you are living correctly. And in the end, the question is no longer whether Georgia is cheap enough. It becomes something deeper. Do you need stability, or do you need to be left alone? There is no best country. There is only the country that fits the person you are becoming. Some people need freedom, the freedom to stay without explaining themselves. Some need stability, a rhythm of life that feels predictable and steady. And some, after years of constant motion, need something even simpler. The feeling of belonging, people nearby, a community, a sense of presence. The second half of life is no longer a race to prove anything. It becomes a process of choosing, letting go of what exhausts you and keeping what makes each day feel a little lighter. If you have watched this far, perhaps you are already asking yourself a very honest question. So take a moment to answer it for yourself and for others who may be searching too. In the second half of life, what do you need more: freedom, stability, or a sense of belonging? Leave your choice in the comments below. If this video made you see things differently, please give it a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want to keep exploring places around the world where life does not require constant effort just to survive, but feels light enough to truly live.